Welcome to Sit, Stay, Read, the podcast for every wag, whinny, and whisker. I'm Kathleen Donnelly, award-winning author and retired canine handler. Each week, I chat with novelists about the bond we share with our furry friends and how they inspire stories. Grab a coffee, get cozy with your favorite pet. It's time to sit, stay, read. Well, today's guest, Linda J. White, writes what she calls white knuckle fiction, or stories designed to keep you up all night reading, which I can personally attest they do. Inspired by her late husband's decades with the FBI and her lifelong love of dogs, she writes both FBI thrillers and canine search and rescue adventures. She promises gripping stories, characters you'll care about, and endings that satisfy. And today we're going to talk about her seventh book in the Canine Search and Rescue series, I Call Her Brave. Linda, welcome to
Yeah.
the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I read the book and I'm preparing questions, and I realize I feel like I gravitated more towards the ponies with Chincoteague and
Yes.
Assateague. So we'll talk a little bit about them, but I do want to get back to the wonderful canine you've created. So
Yeah.
we'll get back. But I really enjoyed I Call Her Brave, and I'd love to just have you share with our listeners the storyline and just a little bit more about the book.
Sure. It's actually the seventh book in a series. I started out, my husband died in November of 17, and I thought maybe I'd stop writing because I'd been writing for a long time, and but he'd been a lot of my source,
Yeah.
and so then he had 9 years of cancer, and then he died, and but about 6 months later, I got restless, and I thought maybe I can do that canine story. So I've loved dogs my whole life. I'm for the first time in 50 years, I'm without a dog right now, but that's all right. It just is the way it is. Um, but so I had some people that helped me who actually do the search and rescue as volunteers in the Fredericksburg, Virginia area. And
Cool.
so they very kindly let me interview them, let me go to their practices. And I knew enough about dogs that, I picked up on a lot of the training techniques and so on. So that's how my series got started. And I found that when I started writing it, I just couldn't let those characters go. So, but I never really intended a series, but here we are, and I'm in the seventh book. So the seventh book, actually, you know how people do time slips where they're doing in like the 19th century and then they slip into the 20th century and
Mhm.
back and forth. Well, I decided to do a character slip. So what I decided I can do that. So I have my main character's name is Jess, and she's the one that does the search and rescue, and she's married to an FBI agent. So we do bring a lot of FBI stuff into. Her husband was married before and has a grown daughter who's really had a lot of trauma. And so at
Yes.
some point she graduates from college. She's super smart, but she's had a lot of trauma in her life. And she graduates from college and she doesn't really want to go to law school, although she's been accepted to two different law schools. And she tells her dad, I want to go to the beach. I want to go to my happy place because she was raised for the most part in Southern California. So he goes, well, to himself, he's going like, I'm not paying for that, because she's had so many issues. And so he finally says, okay, I got a beach house for you. And he arranges to rent the house in Chincoteague, which is a small island off the Virginia coast. It's way out in the Atlantic, attached by a causeway to the mainland. And it's the sister island to Assateague, where the Chincoteague ponies are. That sounds confusing, but it's two islands together. And really some from the 1600s, people were keeping their livestock on that outer island on Assateague and living on Chincoteague, but keeping the livestock over there. And so they developed this tradition of every once in a while rounding them up and selling the ones that they didn't need. And so that was in the early 19th century. In 1825, there was a newspaper article that said basically this is an ancient tradition at Chincoteague is to round these ponies up. Well, 100 years later, they ended up making it what we know of today as pony penning. The fire department took over, and we just in a couple weeks ago had the 100th pony penning. Pony
Wow.
swim. all of which was made famous by Misty of Chincoteague. So I love this place because my grandparents moved there when I was a kid. They retired there. So I've been going there for a very long time and already have set one of my books there. But I also got interested in equine therapy. And by that, I don't mean, like physical therapy. And she's like 22 years old. She's graduated from college. And and her dad says, yeah, you can go to the beach. Sends her to Chincoteague. And she starts interacting with a slower pace, a less technological society, and the horses and the lives and the birds and the beach and everything over there. And it's not exactly Southern California, but it slowly starts to heal her. So that's what the story is about, is her journey toward healing. And then at the same time, Jess has taken on the job. She's a private investigator now. She used to be a homicide detective. She's a private investigator, and she's taken on the job of trying to find out what happened to this woman's child who was abducted or disappeared, went to get ice cream from the ice cream man down the street and disappeared. So she's using forensic genealogy to track back and see if she can find out where this boy is. So those are my two stories. They wind together and meet together and sort of play off each other. And that's what it is. And I think the ending is, in fact, satisfying.
I felt like it was very satisfying and it was really amazing to me. I thought you really have these two what seems like separate stories and then you weave them together beautifully and
Yeah.
it was a fun read. I don't want to do any spoiler alerts so people can read about it, but
Yeah.
we want them to get the book
Yeah.
and read that ending. You have really complex and fascinating characters. Do you have real life inspirations for them or just all from your imagination or a little of both?
Some of each, I think, although I will say, I mean, when you get to be older and you really care about delving into people's personalities and their problems and that sort of thing, you start to get a feel. And I read a lot of psychology. I have friends who, as a matter of fact, I have FBI friends who are forensic psychologists, so that they
Wow.
study psychology in the context of crime. And so I know a lot as a armchair, person, and then I just enjoy delving deeply into people and their issues. So these
Yeah.
characters are, it's a little bit of one person, a little bit of another, but there's only one of my characters in 13 books that are out on the shelf right now. There's only one that was really modeled after somebody, and he's a,
Okay.
a friend of mine, and he didn't notice it. He read the book and did, just so that was early on. But yeah, they're just little bits and if I see somebody who has an interesting habit or something, I might put that in. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. The woman whose child disappeared, um, a friend of mine was helping with a city, kind of service where they help people, clean up their yards or do whatever needs to be done that the people can't do for themselves in the inner city here. And she met this woman who just loves to feed her community. And she just has a
Wow.
day when she just feeds her community. And I thought, well, that's a really amazing way to express love, to just be able to say,
Yeah.
on Tuesdays, if you're hungry, come to my house and I'll feed you. And so that's what my character Desi does. After she has
Yeah.
lost her son, eventually she works in that and becomes that person, becomes kind of that person in the community who just helps. So
I love that. I love that because
yeah.
that, to me, that was a really fascinating part of her character and her healing through losing her son.
Yeah.
And so I love that that's actually one of the things based on something real, that there are
Yes.
people out there in the world right now helping each other like that. It's wonderful.
Yes. 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 That's right. That's right. So I really enjoy hearing people's stories. And I think the more you hear their stories, the more you see these unique individuals that God has created, and they or have gifted in certain areas and they just love people in very specific ways. And I hope that I always have somebody like that doing something in my book. Jess is becoming more and more like that as she's getting older, in my books. So yeah, I enjoy portraying that.
Yeah, it's nice too because we read, I mean, I read a lot of mysteries, and of course that's what yours is. You have the cold case, you have things going on with Amanda, and
Hmm.
so it was nice to have this other side too. I think we tend to get focused on the cold cases, the mysteries of the world, and we forget
Yeah,
about the other side. So I
yeah,
really love that.
yeah. My earlier books were straight FBI thrillers. As I say, there is an FBI element in this because I couldn't really get away from it. I enjoyed it. But I mean, my husband worked at the FBI Academy for 27 years. And so, and most of our friends were agents. We knew them. And we hung out with them and we learned about them. So my earlier books are more, like my husband would say, he's talking him to death. He'd hit him by now. And I go, oh, okay. So, so they're a little bit more, shall we say, robust than these later books.
I love that. And your
Yeah.
husband did a really fascinating job for the FBI. Do you mind if I ask you about that and have you tell us a
He
little about
was
that?
a yeah, he was a filmmaker. He wanted to be a Hollywood filmmaker, and we did 3.5 years in Hollywood early in our marriage.
Okay.
My son was born there, but he never
Wow.
could quite crack the Hollywood code. And so we came back east where both of our families were, and he worked for United Way of America for a long time, and then it went with the FBI. And so he made training films for the FBI.
So cool.
So I always say our kids grew up arresting each other in the backyard using proper FBI procedures because that's what we talked about at dinner time. He'd be talking about some movie he was working on or some video he was working on, and we'd learn, what does it mean to do a car stop, and all kinds of things. So, and he also made shoot don't shoot videos that
Oh,
I
wow.
think they're still using them today. So imagine a scene like a movie scene sort of projected on a screen, and a trainee has to watch it and then decide if he can shoot, when he can shoot, and then he has to shoot with, he's got like a laser gun that shoots, and they
Okay.
get graded on it. So the kids and I all appeared in some of these videos. Just yeah, yeah. My daughters were the screaming little girls in the bank as it was being robbed, all this stuff. So it was a lot of it was I say it was a lot of fun, but it was quite serious too. But over the
Yeah.
years, I learned an awful lot about FBI. So when I started writing, I was a mom at home for a long time. And when I started writing, I mean, that was just the natural thing for me to fall into. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. And yeah, I would always tell people I had great access to the FBI Academy before 9/11. Before 9/11, now you can't get in for love nor money, which is
Okay.
fine. Yeah, it just is the way it is.
Makes
But
sense.
yeah. So I would go over and I would always, and agents were so kind to me. They would just be glad to share what they were doing. But I would always say, don't tell me anything secret because I didn't want to have to keep it separate in my head. And so they were very kind and I learned an awful lot of stuff. I got to sit in on new agent classes and just had a
Wow.
lot of connection there. And I admire so much most of them are just so intelligent and so um, bent on justice and not being brutes, not being, hardcore in terms of, that sort of thing. So I would just admire them, what they were doing and how they stayed straight. And one friend that helped me an awful lot was a woman who was an FBI agent, and she was a character and a half. I mean, she really was. And but Amelia was great. And so on my very first book that I ever wrote, we would get together over lunch and I would go over and I'd say, well, now what would they do if blah, blah, blah? And she would either know it or she'd ask somebody, she'd call somebody and ask them. And so she was a
Yeah.
huge help, but she was a character.
What a wonderful resource. As a fellow writer, I'm like, oh my gosh, what a great resource to have.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's awesome. I Also loved with Jess how you showed she has a law enforcement background. Scott is an FBI agent, her husband, but she's a mom
Right.
and she's taking care of this farm on her own and feeding the horses and running search and
Yeah.
rescue. And I love that. She was such a
Yeah.
strong character. I just I don't know.
Oh,
So yeah, I
I'm
just really
glad
enjoyed
because
that.
really that's the way most of us are. You know, we don't
Yeah.
just have a career, we also have family, home, whatever, animals to deal with, and so on. And so we have
Yeah.
that other side of us, not just business. But yeah, thank you for saying that. I'm glad. I enjoy Jess and enjoy writing her.
Yeah. Yeah. She's so fascinating. And her dog Luke, so he's a German Shepherd.
Yes, which I
And
have never owned I've never owned a German Shepherd, so I had to talk to people who did. But I have owned a male dog that was irrepressible. He was just like all over all the place all the time. But I had softer dogs. I had golden retrievers and Springer Spaniels, and my last dog was a Sheltie. I got a Sheltie late in life
Oh,
because I always wanted a collie type dog because of growing up breeding things like Lada dog and stuff like
yeah.
that. So, but she very bravely, she was not, I was hoping she'd be a therapy dog and she passed all the classes with, hands down, no problem. She did all that. But I discovered she really didn't like people that much. So,
Oh no.
so she, yeah. So I kind of threw that out the window because she was just a little standoffish, like, who are you really, And but I wanted to find out about search and rescue firsthand. So I took nose work classes with her
Oh,
because I wanted
fun.
to
Okay.
do it. Yeah, and she was good. I mean, she because it was a training type of thing, so she was good at anything that had to do with training. So she and I did nose work classes, and that was fun. But yeah, but no, I never had a German Shepherd, but I just
Yeah.
invented one, a rowdy German Shepherd.
Well, I thought you nailed him well. I've never had a German Shepherd, but I have friends who have, and I have sat for him. So I thought you really nailed the breed well and the work well. And
Mhm.
that makes sense if you've done the nose work. You understand what it's like to be at
Right.
the other end of the leash. And he becomes such a big part of solving this cold case. And again, I don't want any spoilers, but maybe we can talk a little
Yeah.
about that too. And
Yeah, well, he's double trained. He's trained to do both live finds and human remains detection, which is somewhat unusual. Often they're trained one way or the other, but I have him doing both. And so then they use him first to go around and see if he can sniff out any bodies in the area where the kid disappeared. And that's one way he was used. And otherwise he is sometimes I say that he shifts into his lassie mode because, because it's like, would he really do that? I don't know. I'm going to make him do it, because he appears in the books in all different. I mean, he survives a flood. He gets washed away and disappears for a month in one of the books. He's
oh,
just
wow.
he's just one of those super dogs. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, he is a invention of my own mind, but a fun dog to write.
Oh, definitely. No, he's a great invention. And I think more agencies are starting to, it depends on the agency and what they need, but starting to do live scent and human remains detection. So
Yeah,
they're out there. So I'm glad you put that because there was a time where it was kind of one way or the other and it does depend, but yeah, I like that he did both because that makes it
yeah,
fun for the book. It makes him very versatile. So,
right. He is very versatile. And another thing interesting that I'm getting into is because, in part because, it's like whatever I'm getting interested in is going to show up in my books because I
right.
enjoy reading about it and researching it, but is equine rescue. Um, not rescue, equine therapy, excuse me,
Mhm.
um, because the studying that is done, which is showing that animals, that horses can help people with emotional problems, especially children who have been
Yes.
traumatized. Well, that's one of the things that's going on with Amanda in I call her Brave, is that she starts working with this horse that's very reactive, very
Yes.
really dangerous horse who's been abused and so on. But she has to learn to modify her emotions in order to keep the horse calm. And so I'm being helped tremendously by an organization called Hope Reigns, Reins, which is in
Okay.
Raleigh, North Carolina. It's in Raleigh, North Carolina. And that's what they do is they get horses. A lot of them are rescues. And they work with them until they're calm and gentle and trust people. And
Wow.
then they bring a kid in who's been abused, who doesn't trust people because they can't, and they learn that they can trust this horse, this calm, gentle horse, and they learn how to modify their own emotions. And it's not like riding so much as it is being with the horse, leading the horse or picking up his feet or just learning all those things.
Mhm.
Sometimes they ride a little bit, but the main thing isn't riding. But it's fascinating to me, just like dogs have always been a therapy for me.
Yeah.
I mean, dogs love you regardless. It doesn't matter what you've done that day or haven't done, they love you.
Yeah.
But horses can be that way too. I've never been fortunate enough to own a horse, but they could be that way too. And so I'm working that in. The sequel to I Call Her Brave that one has a little bit of the equine therapy in it, but I'm expanding it in the next book.
Oh, good. Good. I
Yeah.
love that because it is so important. We have a wonderful, I'll just give a little shout out here to Hearts and Horses here near me in Colorado. And they do
Hmm.
amazing work. They do the therapeutic riding, but they do a lot of veteran programs who deal with PTSD and troubled teenagers. And you're right, that's not necessarily all horseback riding. It's just being with them and just they're amazing healers. Horses are amazing healers. So
Yes. Yeah. So
yeah.
I just really enjoy animals, and I'm happy to be able to show some of the things that they can do for us
Yeah,
and with us.
definitely. Well, and I want to get back to the ponies because I was that
Yes.
little girl who grew up with Marguerite Henry and Misty of
Yeah.
Chincoteague. I still have my Misty of Chincoteague Breyer horse. And
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Good for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I grew up with that. And then my grandparents moved to Chincoteague in 1961, which was a really long time ago. And so of course we would go down, and my favorite week to go down to visit them, we lived about 4 hours away. But my favorite week to go down to visit them was pony penning week. And so we did all watch the swim, go to the carnival. The first pony that touches the shore of Chincoteague, the first little one, they only auction off the little ones. The first little one is called King or Queen Neptune, and they raffle that pony off. So every year, you know what I did? I bought the raffle ticket because I knew
I'd be there with
somehow
you.
that my father, if I won that pony, my father would have to figure out how we could keep it in our little suburban Rockville, Maryland home. And one year I even bought a lead rope because I was so hopeful
Oh.
to get that pony. Of course, I never did. But the cool thing is that after one of my books is called Seeds of Evidence, and it is set in Chincoteague, not so much with
Oh,
the
it is.
ponies, but
Okay.
just a mystery set there. And I started doing book signings during Pony Penning Week that year, which was 2013, long time ago. And every year since then, we have gone down pony penning week, and now I've had grandchildren get born, and and we all go for a whole
Yeah.
week. We go and enjoy the ponies. And there's a lot of video up on on my Facebook page, Linda J. White Books. I think it's on Instagram as well.
Okay.
And they start out, there's two different herds on Assateague. They have a license for 150 adults. So then there's
Wow.
this year, this is the 100th year that they've done this. There were 100 ponies born
Oh my
before.
gosh.
Yes,
Wow. I have
first
goosebumps.
of all, I know. First of all, it's
That's
a
crazy.
record, but second of all, it's crazy. It's 100 ponies on the 100th
Yeah.
year. So they gather up. They have two herds, one in the north, one in the south, and they're fenced to keep them off the roads. But I mean, the place is so big; it's just the fence is right along the road. So they gather up over the weekend before they gather up these two herds. And the one that's in the north, we go over on the beach at dawn. We are there by 5:15 or so in the morning.
Oh,
Dawn is
wow.
usually right around 6 o'clock. And the cowboys, they call them saltwater cowboys. The cowboys bring that herd down the beach to get them to a pen where they keep them for a couple of days. But it is the coolest thing. The sun is coming up, there's mist coming out of the water, and you see this dust cloud in the distance. It's a sand cloud, really. And it's all the ponies coming down. And it is just, if you like horses at all, it's just a very cool thing. The saltwater cowboys are either members of the fire department or their friends, and they get together. There's a whole big bunch of them, and they ride their own horses and round up the ponies. They keep them in a pen. That's one of the times during the year where the vet checks them and they do shots or whatever they need, Coggins, all that. Um, and then on Wednesday, they will swim them from Assateague, where they normally live, to Chincoteague. And it's very short. They're in the water like 3 to 4 minutes. You know,
Okay.
they wait till slack tide. And the ponies know how to swim. It's crazy, but they all know how to swim. When the flies or the mosquitoes get bad, they jump in the water and swim to get the bugs off of them. So they swim them over, and then they bring them through the streets of they let them rest for a little bit, and then they bring them through the streets of town, put them at the carnival grounds in pens. And when I was a little kid, you could even walk through the pens. Nowadays, they keep the people out, but you could walk through the pens, and they did things like race the ponies, or have them have kids try to ride them and stuff like that, and they get thrown off. And it's like no seatbelts. People didn't care. So they keep them there. That's on Wednesday, Thursday. They auction them, and this year they have what they call buybacks, which are, the fire department says, we want to keep, this year it was, I think it was six, we want to keep six foals to replenish
Okay.
the herd. They kind of figure out, okay, how many deaths did we have this year of the older ones and so
Okay.
on. And then so people, usually groups of people, bid on them and buy them and basically donate that money to the
Oh,
fire
wow.
department, because they become buybacks. But if you win the bid on a buyback pony, you get to name the pony and so on. And your
Oh,
money goes to the fire department and goes to, pay the cost of taking care of the ponies over the course of the year. So this year, it was the 100th year. They had 100 foals, and the winning buyback earned in $100,000.
wow.
$100,000.
Wow.
That's
That's
so unusual.
wonderful.
That is
Yeah.
crazy. It's not nearly that high usually, but there was a whole big group of people who chipped in their money. It was a big group, I'll tell you that. A big group of people chipped in their
Wonderful.
money, and so the fire department really got a very nice donation out of that, and everybody gets to watch the pony grow up. So they're very
That's
smart.
wonderful.
Interestingly enough, they're kind of a mix. Have
Yeah.
over the years, they've brought in some thoroughbreds. They brought in a couple. They brought in some Mustangs from out
Oh,
west.
really?
They
Okay.
brought in a few others. So their bloodlines are mixed. But what everybody tells me is that they're they're very good at preserving themselves. So when these foals that come in are very steady, they're not going to spook easily. They know what to be afraid of, what not to be afraid of, and they're
Yeah.
gentle and smart. They say they're really smart. That's what the buyers
Right.
of the ponies get. So anyway, I never got to own one. I've got a piece of several of the buybacks, and that's what I enjoy now.
I love it. I was gonna say it's not too late, but a buyback is a great way to have
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
And
that's right.
yeah, it's on my bucket list to someday be at Pony Penning Day. I've been lucky to visit twice, once when I was a little
Oh,
kid,
good.
and
Yeah.
once I was in college, I was doing an internship in Gaithersburg, and I decided to drive all the way out. It's a longer drive
Yeah.
than you realize, but oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it's amazing to see them in the wild. And I didn't realize the
Yeah.
fire department played such an important role and like basically kind of owns them and takes care of them. So the
Yes.
money isn't just for the fire department, it's for vet care and all
Sure.
that
That's
too,
right.
right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what happened a hundred years ago in early 1920s. There were two big fires on Chincoteague that kind of
Okay.
wiped out the downtown area, some significant
Oh,
buildings.
wow.
And that's when the volunteer fire department, which was all volunteer at that time, said, we need better equipment to fight these fires. And so that's when they organized the first. Pony penning was
Oh,
to,
okay.
so they took ownership of the ponies. I don't know exactly how that happened. I can't remember, but they took ownership of the ponies, and ever since then, they've owned the ponies, and they provide them with some vet care. As a matter of fact, they take very good care of them. So,
Yeah,
so, but yes, they get the money from the auction, and it goes a lot of it toward the ponies.
I love that. I absolutely love it.
Yep,
Well, someday I'm going to make it to pony penning day, and um, who knows, I could end up. We'll say I'll do a buyback in case my husband's listening to this
that's
podcast, so
right.
that I won't bring a pony home, I'm sure.
Oh no, you'd never
Oh
do
no,
that.
not at all. Well, what's up
That's
next
funny.
for Luke, Jess, Scott, Amanda, all these wonderful Nate? I love Nate. We didn't talk a ton about him, but he's a wonderful
Yeah,
character. What's up next for
yeah.
everyone?
Well, what's up next is, they're always, Jess is always doing her PI work. So she has a situation where a guy um, wants full custody of his children. He and his wife have gotten divorced, and he thinks something's going on. And so Jess does a preliminary investigation. And at first, she's skeptical of the guy because she's a woman. And so she's like, this is a mom. He wants to separate her from her children, but she finds out there is stuff going on that she needs to know about.
Okay,
So I'm about 32,000 words into that book. And Amanda had met a guy in, I call her Brave. She met a
yeah,
guy who's one of the veterinarians that takes care of the Chincoteague ponies. And that relationship gets expanded, but we have to see
great.
what happens if she suddenly realizes that she actually does love him. What would happen if something happened to him? What resources does
Oh.
she have? So we're putting her in trouble. We're putting Jess in trouble. My characters are always getting into trouble. And
Well, but
Nate
that's
is the
good.
Yes, and Nate's the sort of the wise guy. He's from the western part of Virginia. He's kind of talks like a hick, but he wasn't educated. He went straight in the Marine Corps, went to Vietnam, or went to Vietnam. That dates me. Went to Iraq, and then went to Afghanistan, and but he has learned much over the years, and he has a strong faith in God, and so he influences everybody. You just see people like
Okay.
Nate, and
Yeah,
they gravitate toward him, and his wisdom really plays out. So
I love
uneducated
that.
but smart.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you have so many wonderful books. What's the best way for a reader to find your books and connect with you?
Well, I'm all over Amazon, and all connecting probably is best through my website, which is lindajwhite.net. And then you can search that on Amazon. You can search me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm even on Twitter a little bit, X. Uh, yeah, but if you wanted to get started, if you like dogs, I always say start with the first one in the series called
Yeah,
All That I Dread. And it's pretty clear. If you look on Amazon, it's pretty clear which is first and second and third and so on, because I
yeah.
put it right on the cover. So,
I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah, so that would be the way to do it. And I love to hear from people. I have one reader I hear from who's in South Africa, of all places,
Wow.
on a
Wow.
on a macadamia nut farm, and she reads
Oh,
my
wow.
books.
Oh,
It's
I love
just
it.
fun. Yeah.
That's really fun. That's what I love about books is it's a worldwide community,
Yes.
not just a
Yeah.
small community. So that's
That's right.
wonderful.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for coming on the show and for all the dog lovers out there. Make sure you pick up your copy of I Call Her Brave, but that's book 7. So go back to
Yeah.
book 1, although it does stand well on its own. I will say that. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So, and
Yeah,
then
people have told me that it stands alone. So that's good.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. That's what we all try to do as best as we can. But it's great that there's this whole series. And so, everyone, make sure you check it out. And I'll put Linda's website in the show notes so that you have an easy access. And until next time, keep your tails wagging and pages turning.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me today. Sit, Stay, Read is a part of the Authors on the Air Global Network. If you enjoyed today's author interview, be sure to leave a review and share the episode with a fellow animal-loving reader. If you're curious about the world of working dogs and wilderness adventures, please check out my books at KathleenDonnelly.com. Until next time, curl up with your best furry friend and sit, stay, read.